Hey there everyone, it's Austin Bach, and I am back after a very long hiatus. It's been several months since I've released a video. I've been on a bit of a break from Magic, but Ravnica has drawn me back in. We've got a new standard format. The Spectre of Kaladesh has finally left. It's finally rotated out of standard, so I'm excited to try out some of the new strategies, and maybe some not anemic mechanics can take over in standard. And currently I've been brewing with a burn deck. We've already seen some iterations of this deck do well in the first few tournaments of the standard format, mostly due to the power of Risk Factor, which is one of my favorite cards from the new set. It's a Punisher card, which we've seen multiple copies of before, like Book Burning and Browbeat, but this is by far the best that they've printed because it has Jumpstart, which means you get to cast it twice and give your opponent lots of difficult decisions. But this is a pretty dedicated burn deck. We've got full copies of Wizard's Lightning, Lightning Strike, Sovereign's Bite, just looking to take chunks out of our opponent's life total bit by bit so that the decision on Risk Factor is much harder. Complementing that plan, we've got Pyromancer, which is both a wizard for our Wizard's Lightning and just deals direct damage by himself. The Electromancer makes it so that we can deploy our hand much faster. And we're also playing Sword Point Diplomacy, which is not a new card. It was from Ixalan, but this card complements the Risk Factor very well. Both of them are Punisher cards. They give your opponent the option, but it gives them a very difficult decision of either taking damage or giving you cards. So having these two in tandem with all of this direct damage puts your opponent in really difficult positions. However, the one downside of these cards is late in the game, your opponents are always going to choose the draw cards mode, and you're going to end up with like a bunch of lands in your hand, because obviously you're drawing all the cards that they don't want to take damage to prevent you from having, which is where Banefire comes in, which is the main win condition. You can put all of that excess mana into just dealing in super large, uncounterable burn spell right to the face to finish off the game. And we also get to use Expansion Explosion, which is another one of my favorite cards from the set. It's another X spell that can close the game once you have a bunch of lands and you're flooded out, but the front side is also very useful in this deck. For 2 mana, it acts as an additional burn spell. You can just cast one of your own burn spells, hold priority, and then copy it on the stack. So it's just functionally another burn spell, while also serving as a counter spell if your opponent's playing blue. You can counter their counter spells, or you can copy Risk Factors and Sword Point Diplomacies for just additional pressure on the opponent, get a bunch of cards that way. Just a very flexible card, and I've even been thinking about adding a 4th copy to the deck. I'm still not sure if that's correct or not, or how to make room, but it's definitely a card that's impressed me a lot. Moving over to the sideboard, the thing I like about this deck, as opposed to other burn decks in Standard, is it has the potential to completely pivot into a different deck. Having access to blue gives us cards like Search for Iskanta, which just draws us into more burn spells in the mid and late game. Spell Pierce, obviously, just a good flexible way to protect our Risk Factors and such, and let them resolve. Ionize is a really powerful counter spell that doubles as a burn spell. So there are some matchups where we're just going to bring in all these Ionizes and be on the play against lower decks, and they're not going to have much way to interact. And also the nice thing about Risk Factor is it is an instant, which means that you can hold up it and Ionize at the same time. So even if they play round 1, they play right into the other, which is very nice. And then rounding out the sideboard, we've got more controlling elements like Lava Coil, just to deal with problem threats. And we can still play a pretty nice control game while still pressuring the life total, which is why we can afford to play cards like this. You'll also notice I have quite a bit of hate for the green-white tokens deck in Radiating Lightning and Mephitic Vapors, because their ability to just churn out 1/1 lifelink tokens is a complete nightmare for us. So that's the one matchup that I know I want to prepare for. Not really knowing what the metagame looks like right now, that's one deck I definitely wanted to have slots for, as opposed to just generic slots like these. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this deck, and let's just get into some matches and see how we do.